Hey, Scott Harrison here with a T-shirt report, and this is episode number 11. Who'd have thought we'd be doing an 11 by this? So my good friend Richard Greaves, and Richard has been out kind of goofing off and doing Greaves on garments in Indiana and having a good time. And so we have a lot to cover in this episode. Mr. Greaves, what are we going to cover this time around?
Well, it's interesting. Greg Kitson at Mind's Eye Graphics sponsored a seminar, a 2-day seminar starring me called Greaves on Garments. I added insights to Greaves on Garments, and every single person except one, there was one person who had actually read my Greaves on Garments column that was in Screen Printing Magazine for 9 years. So of the 20 people that had never seen it, they just came to see me, and we had a heck of a good time. It was a good retreat into the backwoods of Decatur, Indiana, at Mind's Eye Graphics, a very well-run shop that everybody was impressed with. There were lots of things that people learned just from talking amongst everyone, so that was a nice part of the retreat mentality. Scott, you're going to talk about the new Adobe scheme that's only good for the month of May, and I'm going to talk about a favorite book from the past, Carl Sewell's Customers for Life.
So most of the show is going to be about the Mind's Eye graphic, but I am curious. I see a dolphin shirt hanging behind you, and I'm just trying to see what it says. It's got a parrot on it.
It's a Jimmy Buffett shirt that I printed
with a parrot. I was going to ask you if there's a
shirt. It's the shirt is actually called Son of a Sailor, which is of course a Jimmy Buffett song, and that was of course a challenge to print full color process on a peachy pink shirt and still have the blues of the dolphin and all the water orientation come out correct.
Well, that was the day when no one was doing it but you and probably nobody else, maybe Coudray or Clark, but I don't think anybody was doing that kind of stuff, So that's a great looking. I can see it pretty well from here. I'm guessing you have a highlight white, or probably not an underbase, but it must be a highlight white there somewhere.
This in 1981 was state of the art.
Oh my God, it was. Yeah, 81. Wow.
So in the olden days, it was Coudray, Jerry Claus, and I, and of course the great Bill Wehner. The first three of us, we all printed on advanced process Aero multi-printers, and Bill Wehner was the lone guy. Here's the back.
Wow, that's great. 81. That's shocking.
This is vintage stuff.
Oh, yeah.
On wooden screens. This is before I had met Mr. Newman.
That's pretty funny on wooden screens.
The back was, you've got Adventures in Paradise, Islands in the Stream, books that are on the back. And these are all part of the Jimmy Buffett Caribbean Soul. Oh.
We may... You get you pretty excited about this shirt.
Leave that. If the chair slides away because I got my hands full.
I never ever thought I would in my lifetime hear you say you did a print like that with wooden frames. I'm sorry.
Oh, until I met Don Newman, 1982, 83, all the stuff was done on wooden frames.
That's all we had. Nobody had. Well, I think they probably had rigid aluminum back then. I mean, they had stretchers and stuff, but.
Well. Yes, but to me that's still static. So you know what? It probably was not wooden, but it probably could be. The wooden frames that I built in 1981 and 1982 were works of art.
Mm-hmm. Piece of furniture.
And they could be. Well, but I had my own carpenter when I built the factory, Shadow Graphics, and so we had wood that we aged it for 6 months. And ripped it and then aged it, and so the ones that turned into curlicues, we didn't use those. Granted, the ones to me, but they were half lap joined with a dowel in between, and they were pre-stressed. If there was a curve, we would put them so that they were curved outward. So when you squeeze them together, when we use the advanced air bars, we squeeze them together. So when the mesh got on, oh yeah,
baby. I can see the commercial now with a little bottle. You don't drink, but a little bottle, and you'd be the guy that says, "I've traveled the world and I've made these wooden frames."
I have a couple of wooden frames that are in my hole in the wall storage unit that still hold 14 newtons, and they're 30 years old.
Wow.
So
That's
it's got the same piece of mesh on it, and I put the tension meter out the other day, and when I was prowling around for old screens.
That's funny.
Still has tension on it.
I know. It's going to be a great
But
show, so stick around. We're going to have a great show. We're going to talk a little bit about Mind's Eye Graphic and other stuff and have a good time. Thanks, guys. Hey, we missed a week on our show, and that's because you and I have been traveling so much that we decided that it's hard to fit this thing in. So anyway, we apologize for missing a week. This is episode 11, by the way, but that's where we've been at. But you've been talking about shipping hats to the Kentucky Derby crowd, which was last week, and that's, I'm only a horse fan one day out of the year because I live in Kentucky, for 6 months. So they're big rabid fans, but I watch the Kentucky Derby, and then I don't think about horses until the Preakness comes on in the Belmont. But anyway, but you were going to talk about the postal rates, and the post office have been doing
bang up job.
Yeah, but how would I call that? Like not negative advertising? Maybe it is negative advertising.
Oh, it's definitely negative advertising.
Yes,
It's helping to enlighten the poor customer.
Yeah.
So I'm reading Entrepreneur magazine, the new Entrepreneur magazine, and they've got an ad there for the post office. And of course, the lead item is, let me just read it here. How much does this box weigh? How much does this 1 pound box weigh?
I love that whole headline thing because it really grabs you. You go, duh, 1 pound.
Well, except if you're, it's 11 pounds if you use the wrong shipping company. So, of course, that's a direct slug at Federal Express and UPS, our favorites. Now, my girlfriend Gina ships designer hats, and so when I take those to the UPS store to drop them off, there are boxes that are 21 by 21 by, let's say, 13, 14, 15, or 19, 19. But those boxes are pretty big. They weigh about 4 to 5 pounds, but regularly shipped for 35 to 47 pounds because of dimensional weight. January 1st, they changed over, and I mentioned this in the past, but this is the first advertisement I've gotten from the post office, in a regular magazine that said that. We had some, the Kentucky Derby was last weekend, and there are a lot of ladies that, they order at the last minute, and they need that hat Federal Expressed down to the Brown Hotel or the Galt House Hotel right there in Louisville. Great places to stay. And as I started to prowl, the rates for overnight or even second day are in the $180 to $190. And if you live a little bit rural and it's a residence, that tacks on a little $7 gas and the rural tax of extra delivery because it's outside of a zip code and whatever. So I sort of threw my hands up about a week before Derby, and I said, that's it. I'm going to check what the post office was. And the post office was actually pretty competitive. For overnight service, which in several instances was cheaper than 2-day service. I don't ask for an explanation, but 1-day service was around $29 to $35.
Way competitive.
Including a signature. So one of the big problems that my girlfriend Gina did not want to use the post office is that if you do not have someone that signs, there is no insurance.
Yeah. And
insurance is a big deal. She's never had to make an insurance claim, and if there is, they're going to say that it wasn't boxed correctly when they backed the forklift over. In every claim I've ever made with UPS, it's always been, yes, but the box really didn't protect the goods that were inside. Yeah. And so I don't know that any of the maybe 10 or 15 claims I've made over the last 35 years have ever been accepted as their fault. But each and every box that was delivered an hour late, going to get the money back from the post office. Only an hour late, they're still going to refund the money.
Wow.
Oops. Turns out it wasn't an hour late. It went into the central time zone. And so when I saw 11:28 instead of 10:30, I'm sort of going, all right, I'm going to be cashing in there. It's going to be shipping for free. So I checked into it a little bit, and I forgot that Louisville, Kentucky was in the central time zone.
Is Louisville in central?
Well, I'm only guessing.
No, it's not.
Maybe not. Maybe I still have a claim.
You do, because Michael lives at Nolan Lake, Litchfield, and Litchfield is just on the edge of the time zone, so that whenever you go from Michael's to Louisville, you have to remember that Louisville is an hour later.
An hour.
So if you're going to
Okay.
catch a plane or whatever, you always got to remember that Louisville is not the same. So anyway, just a quick tidbit. But who would have thought the post office would be doing like negative advertising? I mean, I just think that's interesting that the post
Well,
office.
they're just warning people.
Yeah.
They're trying to do their public service.
So do you think screeners are changing? Or I mean, I haven't talked to anybody about it, so I don't know if screeners are maybe rethinking.
I don't.
It, you know.
I'm condemning the UPS and Federal Express, or not condemning. It's really hurt. We've taken all of our business away, and are only shipping with the post office. We have, of the maybe 40 or 50 packages I've shipped in the last month or so, because the Kentucky Derby is the Christmas for my girlfriend Gina.
Mm-hmm.
It was saving $130, and it still gets there overnight, guaranteed.
It's a no-brainer. Yeah.
No brainer.
Yeah. So rumor has it, though, you were picking corn in Indiana last week, or throwing snowballs too, or whatever the heck you were doing. I think you were back on the horse, weren't you? Were you back on the saddle?
I think what you mean. I think what you mean is that the corny jokes were coming out.
But did they laugh? That's always.
I got a lot of laughs.
Oh, good.
I did a 2-day seminar at Greg Kitson's Mind's Eye Graphic in beautiful Decatur, Indiana. Naturally, that's the center of the universe for seminars. And I remember every time I drive down there, you're going through the farm fields, you make a right turn, and you go past the biggest mobile home manufacturer that I've ever seen. I've forgotten what their name is.
Elkhart. Is it Elkhart?
No. It's in Decatur. He's literally surrounded with fiberglass and motorhome people. I mean, the big, expensive, gigantic. You drive it motorhomes.
Yeah.
Great stuff. So Greg Kitson's idea is to create more seminars in the Midwest. He hosts them in his facility, which has a terrific 25 by 25 foot room with a gigantic television. Those of you that looked on the Facebook page or anything that Greg posted, it was a terrific room, little circle of people. We had 21 people in the room. Most of them were from the shirt board. The show literally sold out within a day of Greg announcing it on the shirt board, and only one other person came for from the outside world. It wasn't part of the shirt board. Had 3 people that didn't come, and I have their names and information right here. And
these are no shows that paid.
I guess they're going to want their money back.
Wow.
We'll see if Greg gives them their money back. So
yeah.
I think he did that already. So that's not going to happen on the new show, or the new version that we're going to do in October. We're going to do another one in October. He's invited you, Scott. He wants you to come down. He mentioned a lot of other people. I'm sure he's going to have another screen making seminar. In 2013, he had a couple with the Saudi people, and those were quite successful. So this was the first, totally social media event that I participated in. It was promoted on social media, and I've never been in a room where almost everybody had some sort of an internet device in front of them. So I had to be very careful what I said, because everything could be Googled. But if I had a note, I'd say, go to this YouTube page. Go to look for Durlife squeegees that are molded square. They're going to have a picture there. And so everybody's typing and going to the Durlife articles on the PDFs on the Saudi page, as I was describing why that's the only squeegee that I've ever used, because it's molded square. Now the femur blades, some of the femur blades are also molded square, and I also endorse those. So in preparing for this, it originally started as I was just going to do my standard invisible science, things that you've got to measure, and you can't just be guessing, because the science is invisible. You have to have it explained to you. And so that's been a theme for maybe the last 10 years of a lot of my seminars. But Greg takes a great value in that people are leaving their shops, and they're coming a long way. We had 2 people come from Florida, people flying in from or driving in from Long Island, so 10 hours in a car both ways. the guy from Florida, unfortunately, he missed one of his connections in Atlanta, and he spent the entire evening before flying to Houston and then to Chicago and then finally into Decatur to get here in time. So he had I would say, the longest surreptitious route to get there. But a lot of people drove. It was a Midwestern, Midwestern thing.
Yeah.
So in planning this, it took me a long time to sort of get my head wrapped around, what am I going to do? I'm used to those 90-minute segment impression show seminars, printware show seminars, in which I've got a specific topic. I want to give them more than they could possibly ever absorb in 90 minutes. And I've been known to go a little bit long, which I blame myself. I don't like that when I go long because I'm not prepared enough. I didn't have time to make the seminars shorter. So getting my head wrapped around how am I going to fill up 12 hours, because if you broke down the 2 days into 6-hour segments, it's 12 solid hours. Even with breaks, it's still 12 hours. And how to do that and make sure that everybody's taken care of, because we had people that ran big shops, and we had two people that were just single people that they're it's just them, where their average runs around 12 units. But that's a hard crowd to spread out. I know you've had to deal with that sort of thing in the past, but especially with your boot camp seminars.
But the good news is those guys probably really love getting into a real shop. My boot camps are at a hotel, but to me, if you're a beginner and you get into a real shop, and you can just kind of absorb how they do things, to me that would probably, you were worth it, but the fact that if they maybe got a little lost, it was the benefit of them being in this whole, I think, don't you think that they just love going into a shop? And there they are.
Well, Greg Kitson's Mind's Eye Graphics has always been a model shop. It's fairly Spartan, and I know that I visited him. Last time I saw him was where I actually was at his shop was in 2006, and I went there specifically to talk to him about the spreadsheet work that he's been doing for years. That when I stopped actually screen printing in real shops, I stopped doing the computer analysis that I started doing because I was big in computers in the early 80s, and analyzing the run times and the down times and using statistics, which is measurement plus. He is the best at this of anybody I've ever seen. When we were in the screen room showing people how to use an iJet from Kiwo, and he literally could explain exactly the huge benefits. I've invited him to come on and talk about the benefits of running a computer to screen device, because it's even more economical than people imagine. And he's got it down because he can say, yes, we're using exactly 17 cents worth of wax or 39 cents worth of this, or it saves me this. He understands that, and he understands the value in time savings. What's also interesting is that he's got guys that have been with him for 20 years. Rob and Alan. These are guys that don't have to have it explained to them. Later found out way after the show that his main printer guy has a degree in chemistry from Purdue, yet he's in the T-shirt printing business. So I can't wait to go back and have a few discussions with Alan, because I'm always looking for chemists to ask how to explain, the metaphors that I love to use.
I didn't know Alan had that background. I've been to Greg's and I had no idea. That's so funny.
He was explained. He was introduced as a guy who says lots of yep, nope, and if you really press him, he'll actually answer some things. And he could speak eloquently when he answered questions in the room.
That's right.
Rob and Alan participated in a lot of the things, a lot of the seminar talking, but they also gave demonstrations of how they clean screens, how they shoot screens. They use a Kiwo iJet, and a lot of people had never seen one of those before. Greg Kitson is the guy who does the coding, and it was interesting. I know he knows economically where to be real sharp and where to be, it really doesn't matter that much. And coding is one of those things. He goes against my rules, the Richard rules of how you should code, because when I'm teaching a novice, you got to be real careful. I want the screen to be steady. I do not like the one arm holds the screen and one arm holds the coder. And I just cringed when I saw Greg pouring the emulsion into this big 19-inch coder that goes from edge to edge of the screen. So this goes against everything I teach in my Newman philosophies of the resistance. But you see, the work that he's printing is still getting made perfectly. And so he's saved in not taping. You can't argue with that. If there's no problems, if nothing's going wrong, how can you argue with any of that? So we had a terrific give and take. Although when he's coding, I'm looking up and I say, why is the light above where you're coding? Why is this the only light that it's all turned off? Are you just too lazy to go in there and replace it? And he goes, no, this is the most critical area. I don't want the emulsion to get exposed while it's in there. I said, you just won't expose wet emulsion.
It's
the
wet.
water
It's wet.
prevents it.
Yeah.
And literally, it's like I told him that there was no Santa Claus. He had, oh my goodness, you're kidding. He had no idea. And it's also sort of no fun when you sort of pull the rug out from under like that. And he goes, oh, and he made comments about it for the rest of the show, saying that we're getting those lights fixed right away.
That's
I'm
so
not having
funny.
Richard come in here and give me the razz anymore.
Yeah, right.
But it was like, oh, and if you haven't actually experimented with it or you haven't worried about it, I see so many places that have a dark room. They actually call the coding room a dark room. And we don't have to have a dark room. It's not photography anymore. And if you look at the labs that I've been in at Autotype, I've never been to Chromaline, but also at Ulano, you could read any class of a newspaper in there. I take pictures and everybody looks jaundiced because it's in yellow light, but it's as bright as you can be because it's light safe. There's no UV energy coming out of the bulbs. It was things like this that came up with spontaneous discussion amongst everybody. And it also ties into philosophies that I've been studying for the last 10 or 15 years, especially with the advent of YouTube. And now everybody, all the kids are learning from YouTube. They're not learning from books, and nobody's really going to seminars anymore. Some of the problems with teaching is just the idea of teaching. What does teaching mean when everything can be so well recorded that an expert, a grandmaster, stands in front of you like a teacher in a class? One of the ideas that I've been reading about is that everybody in the audience knows more than the teacher. And what does that actually mean? What that means is that you take all those brains together and they know more, maybe not specifically about that specific class. You're taking a chemistry class. The teacher may know more than everybody, but there's something to be said for the fact that everybody in the room, if you put them all together, that they actually know more than the teacher as far as quantity goes. Maybe all the wrong stuff. But the key thing that I want to focus on is that teaching only one answer. The idea that I stand up and I am the great grandmaster, I am Poobah of screen making, and I'm explaining this is the only way to do it. Well, I don't like that idea at all. And fundamentals need to be taught, but everybody had other ways to skin the cat, and it was the discussions around the room. Everybody could talk to everybody, and everybody could hear everybody. And when they were all jamming together and talking with each other, we'd go off on a tangent, or we'd have one of the breaks almost every hour and a half, and it was people talking with each other. And after the show, after 9 p.m., there was a group of guys that stayed up until 4 in the morning, dragged themselves right back in there. At 8 the next morning, they were having the time of their lives talking to themselves, not talking to experts. And I really liked that idea. Now, this is the first time that I'd ever taught in a room full of internet devices, so that was always excellent. And I guess what I really liked is some of the shortcuts that people came up with. Now, a principle of teaching. People may know Stuart Johnson's work. Stuart Johnson is the doctor partner of Ken Blanchard of 1 Minute Manager fame. I've mentioned their books in the past. And Spencer Johnson was a teacher in the beginning, and he got into some fracases with some of the great poobahs of higher learning when he wanted to know why they wouldn't allow helping books in tests, and we're creating tests to graduate into big memory sessions. Imagine if you're teaching geography and you wanted kids to answer the state capital. Well, there's only 50 state capitals, and I guess you could memorize them, and that's one kind of a test. But what if you put an atlas in the room, or what if you put magazines with maps in them, and they could learn to look things up? He was told then, well, then everyone would get 100%. Isn't that what you're really trying to teach? Or you're trying to have the secret? I know, and you don't know. I have the answers right here to the test, but I'm not going to show you. That sounds like all the bad stories of Catholic nuns that would punish you if you did not know the catechism correctly. So it's a common joke now that if I ask you a question, you say, I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
It's just because you're too lazy to go look it up.
You got my phone, yeah.
I mean, you don't want to look it up, okay. I think I mentioned that.
But it is interesting
that
now, you're right, though. That now it's all changed, because if they have a question, they just do a quick little Google search. I mean, it's you don't have to remember stuff anymore. It's all there. So
facts, I see how that is worthwhile in facts, but a lot of screen printing is not look-upable. The great Maria Kondo talks about how seminars, people that bring home these big, thick sheets of information from a seminar, all the handouts, they keep them and they think they're going to read them. The real point of a seminar is really to stimulate people. You get a live person up there talking, they stimulate you to go and do the research required. And that's certainly one thing that I can do, because I know of some article or some reading that you can read that will teach you more than I can tell you, because all the facts have been vetted and they're better references than just me talking for an hour every hour. The high point and the reason for anybody to come to the Greaves on Garments in October would be because it's in Greg Kitson's shop and you get to actually deal with the reality of that.
Now, did you actually go in the shop and make screens?
We made screens, but in their screen-making room,
right?
They watched him make screens. So you had a Kiwo iJet. They went and spent some time in the art department first. Then they moved in and watched them load a screen in, look it up on the computer that's right next to the iJet, press it, and it's going like that. And they create a stack of screens. And they don't just go immediately and process them in line. They work in sections. For instance, they do all their reclaiming from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the morning. And then Greg coats during the day, I guess. I don't know exactly what their time schedule is. And then throughout the afternoon, they'll make the screens. And then at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock, I'm sorry, maybe it's 2 to 3 or 4 o'clock, they'll take the stacks of screens, 2 at a time, put them in front of the new 3 LED SATI LED unit that I showed the movies from the SGIA show that they got from SATI. They hang them up on the wall, and they make big use of dip tanks. I love that. They'll take the pre-soaked screens that have been in the dip tank for 2 or 3 minutes, put them in a sprayer, and then 900 pounds per square inch. Then they're done. Take them out, put them on the rack, go back, take the screens that we're exposing while he was doing that, puts them in the dip tank, then goes and gets 2 more screens from the dark room, puts them in front of the lamp, hits the button, and then washes the ones that have been in the dip tank for 2 or 3 minutes. It's timed like a ballet. And so they're moving around a lot, but they make 60 to 70 screens in an hour and a half in sections, in stages. And there's only 2 guys doing it. 7 months ago, I think he made the first one, which is their screen cleaning area, and then he did another one with the processing. So we'll put the links in the show notes. They're on YouTube. Go to Mind's Eye Graphics in YouTube, and you have to skitter down. And yes, I think they're well worthwhile, especially the screen cleaning one. People are always asking, how do you clean the screens? And Greg shows it in 3 minutes exactly how you can do it. And now he has a custom-made table. He has a flat table, not level, but flat, made out of a gigantic piece of stainless steel. And then it's tipped down. So when you're cleaning a screen, it rolls to the back, then rolls out into a pipe, into a settlement tank that keeps all the sludge.
I got to see this.
All right, well, you'll have to watch after this show.
I will. But I love that. Yeah, it's just logical. I'm surprised Don Newman doesn't sell something like that.
I know Kiwo a long time ago in the 90s had a water filtration thing, and I know that in desert areas, when I was in Florida, we created a 500-gallon recycling sink with a settlement thing in it, and it literally paid for itself very quickly, but because of the water costs. And in California, we had people coming around saying, you've got to reduce your water usage at Coastal Printworks in North Hollywood, California. It was a big deal. Couldn't use the swamp coolers on the roof to cool the shop because it was using too much water.
Probably worse now. That was what, 5 years? No, when you were
well, that was in 1995 to 1999.
Now it's probably really bad on screeners. So we have some. You have 10 hours of video, 20 hours of video,
what?
30 hours of video.
I have videoed almost every seminar I've ever done. I just stick a camera in the back of the room, and mostly for me it's to catch what I might say that might be interesting. And I have stacks and stacks and stacks of the audio cassettes of what I've done in the past. I've got all sorts of body mics and things that I've used in the past. So I definitely wanted to capture this because I knew Greg wanted to do another one later on, and 12 hours, egads. Plus I get to capture the questions. Mm-hmm. So I set up my 2 cameras, and Pierre Jemdici, he came with his 2 DSLRs. He was not going to be outdone by me. Mm-hmm. So I have one standard definition camera and one high definition camera. And the great thing about the old standard definition camera is I could run it directly through a FireWire right into the hard drive on my laptop that I mounted up on the wall. But the other one, the newer, more modern HT, of course, you can't do that anymore since there's no FireWire built into cameras anymore. So there we're swapping 32 gig cards every hour. When we take a break, I'd swap them out. Pierre would load them into his laptop. So he's also it totals out that there's around 600, 700 gigabytes of raw info. We also had 2 microphones.
What are you going to look at all
Pierre's
this?
Pierre's friend brought along a recorder, and I had my recorder going. So we have, we got tonnage. I don't know what we're really going to do with it. Everybody's wondering when it's coming out, and I believe it's 14 hours of video. So.
Like a major movie.
My goal is to cut it down into little YouTube snippets. That's the new modern way to do stuff.
Yeah. And
turn it into a boilerplate. That way, I do it once, or I look at it and I do it one more time. Make a professional, or not necessarily professional, but a smoothed over, perfectly written version.
Right. Yeah.
So,
you were going to Ustream it. I kept checking the Ustream during the day. You decided not to Ustream it?
Everybody was using the Wi-Fi.
Oh.
And so there were 21 people on the Wi-Fi, and there was actually a Wi-Fi kind of a problem that Rob was working on because it was a highness stuff. Every time somebody went to a new place, it started a new session, and the Wi-Fi just blew up.
Oh, well, that makes sense. I just wasn't sure because you showed me the Ustream.
You were the only one I was inviting to the Ustream anyway. So.
Well, I didn't know, but I checked it a couple of times. I thought maybe it was a bust. I figured you were videotaping.
No, it was the Wi-Fi was really choked up. So that'll be fixed by next time, I'm sure.
Do you have October dates?
No, it's now strictly we plan on doing it sometime in October.
We have to work around the 18th.
Got to get you to come up.
Yeah, you have to work around the 18th through the 20th. I think that's my 50-year high school reunion.
Oh.
You read about those when you're younger, 50-year reunion. Only 5 people are still alive, and you go, I'll never make that. So now I'm having my 50 years.
So you graduated when you were 12, or?
Yeah, 1965. It was a big year, so anyway. Well, I'm glad things went well. And you had, I think, good comments on Facebook. We'll put the links up and stuff, and I think it was a great deal. Hey, I don't have much industry news other than, as far as real industry, but this is Adobe. I just got an email 2 days ago that Adobe was now offering Creative Cloud membership for $29.95 until the end of May if you had purchased CS3 or newer. You know, they offered before a deal where if you owned like anything way back, you could get it for a deal. But this is their latest. I think try to suck in the guys that bought CS5 and CS6 hard copy when they were still doing that. Mm-hmm. And so now for $30, hell of a deal. All you have to show is proof of ownership of CS3, CS4, CS5, CS6. Then they stop selling hard copies, and for $30, heck of a deal. That's all I have. I'll put the link up on here on the page, and just go to Adobe's website. It's their pricing structure shows it right there. You know, special offer. Ends May 30th or whatever the last day of May is.
How long is that going to last? Is that the 1 year?
Oh, 1 year. I'm sure it's going to go up to the $50 for the second year. Good point. Yeah, it's it for the first year. So, but it's a good deal, $30. I just look at guys that are on the fence there. I talk to guys 4 or 5 times a week that are, I'm not going to go on the cloud. Or now, it's what's funny is now as they upgrade their computer, I get the opposite email. I was forced to go to the cloud. Good for me because then they got to update their TCEPs. But I'm getting a lot more of those. I can feel that people are now having to go that route as they get their new, the latest and greatest, and then they can't run their old, version 7. I still get guys that say, I'm on version 6. We're not talking CS6, we're talking 6, which has got to be, what do you think, 15 years old, so
at least.
So I'm getting that little wave of people that now are having to upgrade TCEPs because they are forced to go to the newest version. And it's still confusing. People that went on CC, when they first did it, now they're on CC 2014 and they go, your plugin doesn't work, and so it's a moving target. But anyway, $30 a month, pretty clean deal. Hey, you commented to me that you had heard that our good buddy Joe Catazone had changed jobs again. He was with Union Inc. for probably most of his adult life. Frankly, I think Joe was we thought Joe would go with the place, and then when they sold to Rutland, I think maybe there was some issues. But anyway, then Joe went to who did he go to? The other guys?
I choose not to remember. He's not there anymore.
That's okay, not there anymore. But he always had his little side business, and I thought it was named after himself and his wife, Joe Vick. And he clarified that to you just now, and as we had verified in email. It is Joe Vick, named after his son and his daughter. I don't know why, but I always thought it was named after Joe, and I thought his wife's name was Victoria, so I was wrong there. But anyway, Joe Vick Industries. He's had it for a long time, but never promoted it. But now you said you found out he's got all these lines that he's going to carry, that he's increasing.
He's going to be carrying Lancer, Tecmar, Corcam, Ink Innovations, Matsui, Albatross, and Permaset. He's not going to have the QCM and Sati that he distributed at the old place. He is distributing pre-stretched aluminum frames, which even I use some pre-stretched aluminum frames, but of course they're not Newmans, but we can't all be perfect. We can't all be perfect. Can't distribute Union Ink anymore probably either. But he's got Lancer, so that means that he and Jeff Proctor will be back together. They're old pals from the old Union days.
Sounds like a bad marriage some days, though. We
Ah.
won't go there. So
I know.
He's going to have a physical building. I always thought he worked out of his house on that, and maybe I was wrong. Because in the beginning, he was just carrying inkjet film and a few little very minor things. But it looks like he's really blown it up now to be a full supply company. And more power to him. We love Joe, and I'm really glad for him.
You can trust him as far as all of his years of experience. And gosh, I think he knows everybody on the East Coast, and so
he must. I was talking to somebody the other day who said, "Oh yeah, I've been buying Union for years." Well, you probably bought from a guy named Joe Cat. Joe Cat. It was like he's like he'll have no problem selling stuff. And of course, we like Lancer, so I think that he'll have no problem selling Proctor's Goop or Jim's Goop or whatever. So anyway, so that's the latest news.
I met him.
We'll put up on the screen his newest phone number and his website if he's got one, and all the information. But look up and throw a bone to our buddy Joe Catazone. I think in our last few shows we have neglected to mention Printware Arlington, Texas. Maybe I'm wrong, but I know we've talked about DAX, Indy, ISS, Vespa. I don't think we've even mentioned Arlington, but it's May. I just happened to catch it this morning. It's May 14th to the 16th, coming up in a couple of weeks. This week, which this show will not be probably edited by then, is the ISS show in Nashville. And maybe next week we'll have some feedback on it if anybody had a hard time getting a hotel room. Because as we discussed, I think we discussed it on the show, we discussed it privately, I know, about that this was Vanderbilt University's graduation weekend, which is why there's no hotels. There's some other university in Nashville, maybe you know what it is, that's a graduation week also, and so that's why there's no hotels, and the hotels are sky high. And so, but we had then Prayer War Indy in June, and that's where M&R is giving away their cruiser press. You have to go to M&R's site. We did links from the last show. I've got my,
Before you move on to that, I'm anticipating going down for the first day only. So I'm going to go down
to,
I think,
Nashville
Wednesday.
or Indy? Nashville or Indy?
No, to Indy.
Indy, okay.
Because it's only 200, 300 miles away. So I'll drive there and do one thing. So anybody wants to get together the Wednesday night before, and then I'll undoubtedly be driving home after the show. Yeah,
cool. I wish I was going to be there. I wish I was going to be in Nashville this week, but that just isn't going to happen. FESPA is the 18th to the 22nd of May, and as we you and I are both members of the Academy, and yesterday a little thing went around who's going to be there, and of course everybody's going to be there but us. You know, like,
that's because it's $1,700 just to get there. So
I double checked it, thinking, well, maybe at the last minute somebody will give me an invite, you know. And I went online; it was like $1,800 to fly there. No, nobody's going to do that. So anyway, that's a huge show, though. Remember we talked last week or 2 weeks ago that they have over 700 exhibitors, and it's going to be gigantic. And I wish I was there. I've got my boot camp coming up June 18th through the 20th, where I do my 3-day separators class. Michael does 3 days with all the beginners at the beautiful Holiday Inn, and I can't get a hotel room to save my life in Bowling Green. It's big. It's a big. I knew going in that those dates were going to be tough. That's all I could get. But there's a big car show, and the Holiday Inn is booked. the Comfort Inn across the street's booked. I had to put on my website, you know, here's other links, you know. So.
I talked to Jeff Proctor last weekend. He'd just gotten back.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but is he still working with Lancer? I haven't talked to Jeff in a long time. So,
in fact, he called because he wanted to give me the Razzoli. He's going to send me some new Lancer shirts because he sees that at the Mind's Eye Graphic seminars I was wearing a Ulano shirt and a Lawson shirt, and he was upset because I don't work for them anymore. But I want to say I still honor those two companies. I didn't leave them in anger.
Right,
so
right.
I guess I'm going to get some free Lancer shirts if he sends those out. But he called to tell me that he hadn't paid a lot of attention, even though I was giving him the pointing finger, giving him the needle. But he finally went and really looked at the Firefly at the DAC show in Chicago. And he said, oh, wow. I got a wholehearted review. He spent a lot of time talking to the Harpold boys, and he was very much impressed. He was aware that I told him that it draws a lot of electricity, and he actually got a number finally that it draws 200 amps. But when it's turned off, it's not drawing 200 amps. So again, you have to worry about the surge function. But yes, this is not for the little boys. It's not a starter machine. It's meant for somebody that can actually use that higher quality, especially with the polyesters that bleed so much. You're giving me the look of.
I think a lot of average small homes, that would be the size of their service for the home, 200 amp service. I'm just thinking.
Right.
So I'm thinking that they turn this machine on, or it cycles on, and all the lights go. Maybe I'm wrong, but. And even at a convention center, having bought a lot of power and spent many thousands on power at convention centers, to buy a 200 amp service at a convention center, you know, that's pretty funny. I mean, you know, I don't think people realize the average outlet's like 15 amps, maybe 20 amps for like an outlet. A heat press draws about 20 amps. So you do 200 amps, that's a lot. But, you know.
I think that was the one thing that he actually drew out of them. But I can't wait until they have a few more in the field and they start to really, you know, do an analysis of how much throughput or how much actual energy it's using. Because if it's off for 3/4 of the time, it doesn't really matter that it's drawing 200 amps. It's off most of the time, which you can't do with an infrared panel.
We need to find out if they've got, I mean, if they have any in the field. You never know. It could be that it's, you know, a slow catch to catch.
I know they do. They just don't want to explain. I know they do. They just don't want to explain who's got them. So they're being close to the vest, and I respect that they're new. But I think we're going to look back at 2015 or 2014, 10 years from now, we're going to see a sea change in how ovens are curing. And we're also going to see a sea change as more and more and more digital things take over. The people I've talked about before, the man with 40 Cornette avalanches. This is the sort of person that could really use this sort of
Oh
curing
yeah,
unit.
oh yeah. We need to post on our Facebook page the new page we have for the T-shirt report. Anybody that knows anybody that's got a Firefly, I'd be curious, not to trash the guys, but just to find out. It's new, and to see if they got the bang for their buck. Are they felt it was worth it? I think we need to find out.
You brought up a good point. We started a Facebook page to be able to have a central location, and we didn't do much on it. So we've got to get in there and post all the older versions and move the show notes that we put in the YouTubes over there. So
Tomorrow.
We'll put that link in. Right.
Really, I've been ignoring it because I've been doing in my home improvement mode.
You've been doing real work.
I was moving rock yesterday. Boy, I tell you what. I'm thinking this is I'm getting too old for this, moving dirt. Anyway, all right.
You're looking for a condo with a pool now?
Yeah, and yard service included. That's the plan. So anyway, all right. So we got to check on the Firefly and see if it really does draw 200 amps, and see if people are getting their bang for their buck for whatever the thing costs. We'll check it out. Drum roll. This is the Greaves book review. What are you reading today? I know you're reading something every day.
As I was driving down to Decatur, Indiana, I put in an old cassette tape of mine, Carl Sewell, his book, Customers for Life. It wasn't actually Carl Sewell doing the reading, but it's a book that I've loved since the mid-'80s. It's an older book. I guess it's 35 years old now, but it's by Carl Sewell, owner of Sewell Cadillac in Texas, Dallas, Texas. And it talks about the way he's encouraged continuous customership. He was greatly influenced by one of my favorites, Joseph Duran, also influenced by Tom Peters. These were the big quality and business gurus from the 80s that I grew up on. And I love this book. In fact, I can remember there was a time when he noticed that the employees were not using the bathrooms at Sewell Cadillac, and he went, and spoke to them in the way that a lot of owners don't do it. And they say, the bathrooms here are horrible. Do you think this is the way we live at home? And it was that quote, "Is this the way you think we live at home?" That was absolutely embedded on my brain as that's absolutely the number one thing. And I loved listening to I got invigorated. So I think the audio cassette and the book itself, again, like all these that I had mentioned, they're definitely stimulants, and I get all excited. I heartily encourage it. Carl Sewell's Customers for Life.
You said it's 35 years old, but me, my philosophy has been that selling is a lost art, but some things never change. That book could probably be 100 years old. I mean, I remember reading Winning Friends and Influencing People by Dale Carnegie, which I'm guessing was, I don't know, written in the 40s probably. But some of that stuff is timeless, I think. And I think people need to read that stuff to kind of get back on track because I think the average maybe I'm wrong, but I think a lot of business people chase the new customer. They don't chase the current customer to get them to continue to buy. They keep going after the new customer, and they ignore the regular customers they've already got, that they spent money to acquire those customers. And so I think books like that are great to read. I used to buy stuff like that for my sales guys and force them to read them because I thought they could learn a lot from that kind of stuff.
Well, I've always been a reading guy and supplying literature. In fact, it was one of the things that came up at the weekend retreat this weekend is that, what should they have? Well, these days you need a tablet or some sort of a Chromebook, which only costs $250. That if you had that in a specific room, or you had a shelf full of books, a library of literature, it seems to me that's a very small investment for a screen printing shop.
No, I agree. Of course, now it has to be all on the tablet, as you say. That's the wave of the future. All right, we'll have to make sure they get that book. Okay, that's our show. It's been great talking about your thing at Mind's Eye Graphic because I think that's fantastic. And you used a term a minute ago that Brett needs to think about, a retreat. I don't think anybody's doing a screen print retreat where you go to Indiana, maybe you go out and you pick some corn or whatever. But it could be interesting. Do a little mini event, and call it a retreat. And we'll go out at night and we'll bond and we'll do team building skills and other stuff like that. Maybe we'll have to think about that. Anyway.
Well, we did that because we had pizza the first night, and nobody, when people came early the night before, and they arrived at 6 o'clock, and we finally, turned the lights off at 10 o'clock. Then we all went to the Baymont Inn, which, a fine room for $55 a night. Yeah. But you have to get to Decatur, Indiana, so that's a good idea.
I like the word retreat. I'll talk to Greg about that. So anyway, thanks for watching our show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll talk to you all next week. Thank you, Mr. Greaves.
Bye-bye.